Arknights Endfield just released, and it came with tons of brand new systems that, I'm gonna be honest, are pretty dang confusing. But having played for more hours than I've slept in the past 2 months, I've learned a plethora of things, such as how to maximize my damage and how to get a good angle on Fluorite without her catching me. In this video, I will be teaching you important life lessons about market manipulation, weaponizing lizards, and also how to play the new Arknights game. My name is Braxophone, but you can call me Brax, and this is my beginner's guide for Arknights Endfield. Oh, and this video is sponsored by Arknights Endfield, so thanks gang, you a real one for real. The first thing that I want to go over is your authority level and exploration level. If you've played gacha games before, this is basically the same thing in every single game, but if you're a normal, sane human being, then let me explain. Authority level is essentially your account level that dictates your progression and what you're able to do. It's tied to how high you can level your characters and weapons, what content you can spend stamina on, and what stories you have access to. Technically, some of this is exploration level, but we'll get to that in a second. In my opinion, even for people who don't like min-maxing, your account's level in a gacha game is sort of the main thing you want to focus on progressing, since that's what's gonna allow you to get into the most fun and complex parts of the game. But the good thing is, it comes more naturally than underwater basket weaving. Leveling your authority is actually really easy, and of all the gachas I've played this far, I found Endfield to be the most straightforward, actually. Almost every single thing gives you authority XP. Opening chests, completing quests, picking up these, white things on the ground, all of those will progress you forward. But here are some things that aren't so obvious. First, if you open up your operation manual, you'll see some different tabs that can grant you XP. The important ones are your daily, node, index, and simulation. Daily tasks can grant you a huge 1150 authority XP a day, which for comparison, that's like doing 6 to 12 side quests, except it only takes your left hand and 5 minutes. If you pulled Yvonne, then there's a high chance you'll need your right hand too. Your nodes tab will essentially just be a list of tasks for you to complete to gain some bonus goodies like experience, new weapons, and more. It's a good place to go if you don't know what to do next, since you'll want to complete it all eventually. One of the easiest and most productive ways to get authority XP is to spend your stamina. Now, stamina in this game works pretty much the same as in other gacha games, where you'll gain stamina over time and you can spend it to get leveling and progression resources for your characters and weapons. The index page has different tabs for character and weapon XP, level cap and skill materials, in-game currency, weapon augments that I'll go over later, and boss fight materials. All of them will be useful, and when you clear any of them using stamina, you'll also get authority XP as well. There's some important things to know about Endfield though. First, the higher level stamina based missions you complete, the more stamina it will take, which seems like it could just be to make things faster for you the higher level you go. But in addition to you spending your stamina faster, you also get significantly more rewards per stamina spent as you go up in level, and this also includes more XP per level. Overall, spending stamina is probably the most consistent and fastest way to advance your authority level, but as a general note, if you run out and the game prompts you to spend Origiometry to refill stamina, I would recommend against it, since that's a rare resource that can be used on a lot of other gameplay features. You'll also increase your maximum stamina count by increasing your authority level, which allows you to spend more on the higher tier missions every day. But for those of you who want to farm the highest level right away, you'll need to increase your exploration level first, which comes with progressing through the main story and clearing trials. The game will basically walk you over to those, so you don't have to worry about it much. Just know you can't jump into the highest level farms for a bit. And that brings me to the last experience gain to talk about, which is the simulation tab. The simulation tab is full of tutorials and a lot of them give experience. But I'm gonna be honest, these are probably the last things I'd ever recommend doing for XP because they are grueling to get through. They all have to do with the factory, which isn't bad, but they take a really long time to complete due to the game making you wait through a lot of operations, and the amount of XP per time spent is only worth it if you can't think of a better way to level up. I mean it, these things absolutely suck. Speaking of, now would be the best time to talk about the great Endfield filter, the factory. A lot of people are very worried about the factory system, but as I'm writing this, I actually think it might be the simplest part of Endfield. Sure, it can look complex, but if you've taken 6th grade math, you can operate this thing no problem. Probably. The factory is input and output, plain and simple. It's a glorified crafting menu that automates based on the items you want to make, and the best part is, you don't even have to build it yourself. So long as you have the right resources and machines, you you can use other players' blueprints to take their hard-earned systems and make them your own. That shit's not watermarked. Your factory? No, that's our factory. I actually like the factory though, because it allows you to take rocks and turn them into virtually anything ranging from explosives to non-lethal medications. It incentivizes you to go out into the world, attach electric wiring to an electric pylon, and begin your AFK quest to level 99 mining. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you need to unlock more factory machines and start increasing your maximum power threshold to power everything outside of the factory area. Overall, looking at the skill tree, I highly recommend focusing on the left side. Combat and exploration abilities were the last ones that I personally upgraded because you don't use them a lot until later in the game when you're optimizing farming. It's not really hard to get more skill points to spend on these though, because if you find these wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube men around the map, they'll just hand you one. The biggest benefit of the factory, in my opinion, is that if you do it, you can play the game, and if you don't, you can literally die. In-game, obviously. Making gear doesn't require stamina in this game, and the stats are all static, meaning that you can choose exactly how you build your characters, and you don't have to worry about getting lucky to give your characters a baseline of stats. Throughout the game, you'll get access to more factory areas to increase production, and some of them are side quests, so make sure not to miss them. You usually pick them up right next to the zone, and the zones are Valley Pass, which you'll get normally, Originium Science Park, and Power Plateau. You'll also get one in Jingyu Valley and one in Wuling City later in the game. They get tougher to manage as you unlock more of them, but I think it's kind of fun. The one thing you can't factory produce is character and weapon ascension and skill materials, which aren't tied to stamina, but they do have a daily spawn timer. If you look at these icons on your map, you'll see the plants and rocks that you need to cultivate your units and that they have a spawn timer. I'd recommend getting all of them that you can on day 1 so you don't miss any, but you're not hopeless if you miss them. On the OMV Dijon, you can upgrade your control nexus, which is a fancy way of saying buying RAM in 2026. To upgrade it, you need to visit these recycle icons to get the materials, and then you just pray you've done the right quests. But anyways, after upgrading it, you can make these rooms that will allow you to grow those ascension items automatically, so it can speed up the process of upgrading by a fair bit and allow you to continue endfielding. As you expand and manifest your destiny, you can make like billionaires and manipulate the stock market by talking to this not suspicious man in a bunny suit. Your Valley stock bills are essentially your value as a human being, and the reason I bring them up in the factory section is because they are relevant for your outposts and upgrades. Outposts are what your other factories that aren't your main one are called, and you can sell them things you produce in the factory for a price increase that'll make Pokemon scalpers want to leave the hobby. Valley stock bills allow you to buy useful items like in-game XP, pull tickets, gifts for best girl, and deadly weapons. On top of that, they allow you to upgrade your factories to get one of the most useful parts, the depot bus. Depot bus will allow you to use bus loaders and unloaders, which essentially gives your factory more inputs and outputs, so you can make way more items and way more complicated items at a time. The fastest way to get more stock bills is to crash other worldly economies. You can start by day trading items, where you'll look at an item's stock value, buy them low, and then sell them high in a friend's world. This will essentially crash their entire economy and destroy the world as they know it. And just like in real life, you'll be a multi-billionaire. You can also get stocks every day from doing depot node missions, which can be started here on the map. And I have created the most intricate machine in history to get there. Stock bills are also used later for gear progression, so you'll want to make sure you're constantly increasing the amount that you have. Yes, there are stocks and factories in an anime game. Finally, we've genetically engineered the perfect autism. Speaking of genetically engineered, all of the characters in Arknights are part animal as a result of a super cancer or something, but that makes all of their designs super cool. But the way you play them in Endfield is even cooler, because in Endfield you play 4 characters on field at once. Characters all have an element, a main attribute, and a secondary attribute of basic attack, skill, combo skill, and ultimate. Your goal is to build your team around maximizing your damage through combo skills and arts reactions. Some characters have really easy combo skill activations, like Perlica, who procs her combo skill after you use your final basic attack, and Endman, who gets their combo skill after Perlica's. Well, actually, they just get it from anyone doing a combo skill, but you can combine the two and you know what I'm saying, right?
No.
Arknights Endfield feels slow if you don't bother to read character kits and pairings, but if you know how to trigger combos, the tempo of the fight gets much faster and much more satisfying. It can seem confusing though, because sometimes following what's happening on screen is harder than every single Endfield player who's seen Fluorite. Sometimes it's also okay to be like, yeah, I don't know what happened happened, but they're all dead. Combat also feels much faster when you manage skill points well. Skill points, or SP, is your resource that allows you to cast skills, and it recharges very slowly. But there are multiple ways to speed it up, like landing the last hit in your combo, called a combo finisher, nailing a perfect dodge, or bringing characters that refund or increase SP generation. Akekuri is an amazing 4-star support that gains you SP with their ultimate and can also make teams play much faster. Arknight is another character that will refund you some SP with everything in her kit except for her ultimate. Now, I know that most of this video has been pretty silly and unserious, but I need you to lock in for a second because I'm about to yap. Arts reactions are the other piece of the puzzle for Endfield combat. The basic thing to know is that some characters can apply an elemental infliction, and once that's applied, 2 of the same elemental application will blow up for an arts burst of damage. However, if you combo 2 elements, the last one takes priority and it becomes a debuff version of whatever that element is. For example, the second element being a heat infliction will make combustion, which leaves a burning damage over time on the enemy. Electric infliction will result in electrification, which makes the enemy take more arts damage. Ice infliction will apply solidification and freeze the enemy in place, and nature infliction will result in corrosion, which lowers enemy resistances to all elements. A solidified enemy can be shattered by a physical infliction. Physical damage just kind of interacts with itself. It has a bunch of different debuffs like lifted and knocked down, which are essentially just vulnerability stacks plus a stagger. Crush, which consumes vulnerability stacks and deals a ton of damage, and breach, which does the same thing but also increases enemy physical damage taken. The only thing that you really need to know is that if a character forces an arts reaction like Perlica's combo skill, it won't do any damage on the infliction since there was no element reacted to, and the element was actually forced onto the enemy. This applies to all characters who can force an arts reaction. It's not really a beginner concept, so I'm gonna go over them more in detail in future videos, but for now, that's sort of the basic rundown. Okay, you can unlock now. Characters do damage based on their weapon stats and attributes, and their attributes are affected by their weapon and gear. A character's main attribute will be highlighted in a piss yellow, and their secondary will be highlighted in gray. Those are the only 2 attributes that actually affect their damaging stats. All attributes do something though, with strength buffing HP, agility buffing their physical resistances, intellect buffing arts resistance, and will increasing healing received. Attributes and gear aren't hard. The square goes in the square hole, and the square adjacent square also goes in the square hole. There is one other thing to consider with gear though, and it's gear artificing. There is technically an RNG element to gear in super late game, where you can enhance the stats of gear even further, but it's nothing like what you're used to in other popular gachas because there is essentially a pity on gear for each artificing upgrade. So no matter what, you'll always be able to get max stats if you put in the time and gear. Basically, there's a limit to how much you can lose. Earlier in the video, I mentioned weapon augments and said I'd go over them later, but first you should augment this subscribe button or something. I don't know, I give up. Weapon augmentation is the only other RNG that's tied to gearing, and it involves slotting an essence into your weapon. Essences also have a pity system to them, so you can always guarantee that you do get maxed out gear for your characters. To get essences, you'll spend stamina on energy alluviums and defeat enemies nearby. And as a general tip, you can evict enemies from the premises by placing 500 turrets in their immediate location. Turrets make this farm so much faster, and the best part about farming essences is that you can prioritize what stats you want to get from each run. Then you can combine the essences to make stronger ones to really min-max your weapons. Endfield does a really good job of minimizing the RNG for character gearing compared to other games by giving you an actually forcibly attainable goal, which is much appreciated. Essences are a bit more of a late game thing to focus on, so let's get back to the beginner focus tips. When you're building your characters, I highly recommend trying to invest in one team first, with your on-field character being the priority. While it can be fun to invest a little bit into every single character or multiple teams, the game will become significantly easier if all of your characters are doing the most damage they can per their level. I'll have a video out on this later, but for free-to-play players, if you're looking for some good units, I highly recommend looking into building Akekuri and Antal, as they're incredibly strong 4-star supports that are well accessible to all players. Akekuri did get nerfed from her previous version, but she's still a decent unit. I also personally really like playing Perlica because electrification is very strong and Perlica combos very easily. But speaking of characters, there's one last thing we have to go over in this video, and I won't lie, I've been dreading it. Not because of the gambling or anything, but just because of the comments that I know are gonna be all over this video. What, you want me to make a complicated system easy to understand? Your greed sickens me. But alright, I'm gonna try and give you the brief rundown of how this works and try my best not to overcomplicate anything, but knowing me, this is gonna be like an 8-minute segment. Right after I stall just a little bit harder. This is the battle pass, and they call it the basic supply pass, or something like that. I don't really know. And the interesting thing about this is that it has 3 whole different tiers, but 2 of them are actually attainable by free-to-play players. The Originium Supply Pass is an upgraded battle pass that will allow you to purchase it using Origeometries that you can find around the map. Now, these are quite rare, and you usually get them as a reward from the main mission or from submitting Orleans. There's a very limited amount of these that you will be seeing every single patch. However, if you play your cards right, you can spend 29 of them to get this upgraded pass. And what comes in the upgraded pass? You actually get the Battle Pass weapon selector, which has a free-to-play alternative to the current rate-up character Surtur's weapon. So as a brand new free-to-play player to the game, you can actually take full advantage of this and get a weapon that works really, really well for Surtur. But not only that, you actually get more Origeometry back than you spent on it. On top of that, you get whatever all this is. I don't know, it's like pretty helpful for leveling, and then you get some stamina. But honestly, I only really care about this weapon and the Origeometries back, which effectively allows you to get a few more pulls if you want to spend down to 29, since that's the cost of the pass. The regular battle pass will also give you a weapon of choice as well as some other bonuses. But if you are completely free to play and you plan on playing this game a whole lot, then I recommend doing this. But if you're not going to be playing the game a whole lot and you're going to be inconsistent, you're not sure if you're going to clear this battle pass every time, I don't recommend unlocking this because you do have a very limited amount of Orgeometries. Okay, I guess now we can talk about the gacha. The gacha in Arknights Endfield feels needlessly overcomplicated, but I think what they were trying to do was combine the Spark system with the currently popular 50-50 system, and it has caused mass panic virtually everywhere. The TLDR is that it's 80 pulls to a pity for any 6-star. However, you have a 50-50 chance of getting the rate-up character or any of the other 6 stars that are in the pool. The 6-star pool is a pool of standard characters plus the 2 most recent other 6 stars that were on banner. If you happen to lose the 50-50, you keep going on that banner up until your 120th pull, where you will hit a hard pity for the rate-up banner. Now, you can pull characters early. You could win a 50-50 at 3 pulls into the banner, as an example, but you can also continuously lose the 50-50 up until your 120th pull. Now, the part where everyone gets confused is what happens if another banner comes up and the current rate-up character leaves. Well, the TLDR is if you didn't pull at all, you're probably fine, and if you did pull, well, I have some bad news for you. The 120 pull guarantee is exclusive to every single individual banner. So essentially, if you did 70 pulls on Levitane's banner and then Yvonne came around, you wouldn't be able to guarantee Yvonne in 50 pulls from then. You would need to do another 120 pulls in order to guarantee her. Now, once again, you can absolutely get characters early, which is why you shouldn't expect to go to 120 every single time, especially when you consider that your pity count towards any 6-star at 80 pulls still keeps. So if you had done 70 pulls on Levitane's banner and gone over to Yvonne's banner and you did just a 10 pull there, you would have a 50-50 chance to get Yvonne or any other 6-star that's on the banner. And then at your 90th pull on Yvonne's banner, you would have another guaranteed 50-50. One thing to consider though is that if you win a 50-50 before the 120 pulls, then your guarantee at 120 disappears because you got the character early. There's also another system on top of this where every 240 pulls, you will get a limited 6-star token that allows you to get a copy of the character. So after your first 120 pulls, let's say you get a Levitane, and then you go another 120 pulls all the way up to 240. Now you have 2 Levitanes, and to get your third one guaranteed, if you just get supremely unlucky, losing every single 50-50, you'll need to do another 240 pulls to get your third. The 120 pulls only works once per banner. The simplified version of this is if you're a pretty lucky player, it doesn't really affect you that much because you're going to be getting characters early anyways. If you're an unlucky player, however, it actually benefits you more to have this system than any other popular gacha system right now, unless you're a whale. If you're someone who likes to swipe for max copies of every character and you get unlucky, it can take a lot of pulls to max them out. Realistically, the odds of you going to 240 per each copy of your character are pretty low because you're going to have 3 50-50s within that time, and the token that you get at 240 is actually a currency to get a copy of the character and not an actual pull for the character. So you'll hit 3 pity 50-50s by 240, and on top of that, you'll get a copy of the character. However, if you're someone who just gets 1 copy of every character, the unluckiest thing that can happen to you is you go to 120 pulls instead of 160 or 180 or whatever the standard is now across a lot of other gachas. But there's one piece of information that I left out because I felt like it would be better to talk about after you understood the main system. On your 30th pull, you can get a free 10 pull, but it does not count towards your pity. If you end up pulling to your 60th pull, you actually get another free free 10 pull, but it's specifically for the next banner. However, it does count towards that banner's pity. Essentially, if you got lucky and you won your character 50-50 at 50 pulls into the banner, and you were planning on pulling on the next character, it's worth doing an extra 10 pulls on the banner you're on, because you'll get a free 10 pull for the next banner, so it's essentially just 10 free pulls. Whew. So let's review what we've learned, okay? There is a 50-50 hard pity at 80 pulls in where you have a chance to get the character. Every single time you hit this 80 pity, it is a 50-50 no matter what. After 120 pulls on one specific banner, you are guaranteed to get a copy of that character. Every 240 pulls on a banner, you are guaranteed to get a token for that character. After your 30th pull, you will get a free 10 pull on that current banner. That does not count towards the pity. After your 60th pull, you will get 10 free pulls for the following banner. That does count towards pity. This system is needlessly convoluted, but the easiest thing to take away from this is if you don't have 120 pulls ready for each individual banner, do not pull on that banner. Really, like do not. If you can't guarantee that you can go to 120, you can't guarantee you get the character, and all of your progress towards guaranteeing the character is completely gone. This game does not play like other recent gacha games that will reward you for consistently pulling. This game actively punishes you if you're not smart with your decision making on who to pull for. So if you have 120 pulls, or if you can get 120 pulls throughout the version, then pull away, and if you can't, well, pull at your own risk, because it could all be for nothing. And all of that was just the character banner. Now, here's the weapon banner. Basically, every single time you do a pull on the character banner, you'll get a currency that you can use in this arsenal page. The weapon banner is a 25-75 with a 25% chance of you getting it and a 75% chance of you getting a different 6-star weapon. Every 40 pulls is a guaranteed 6-star, and every 80 pulls is a guarantee of the weapon that you want. If you look at the details on the banner page, the rates for 6 stars are actually pretty dang high, and odds are pretty high that you'll get them. However, in my experience, I basically had to pull 2 or so different rate up characters in order to get one guaranteed weapon. Personally, I do like the weapon system more because I was never someone who would save up pulls for limited weapons, and this means that I will be able to get a guaranteed limited weapon with one of my favorite characters if I save up the currency, because it's tied to how much you pull rather than how much you go farm the overworld and pray. Additionally, this currency for the weapon banner is actually earnable in the endgame modes of Arknights Endfield, but it's definitely a different system and it can be confusing, so I understand why your eyes may have just glazed over during this portion of the video. There's a ton of new player-friendly events and things of that sort that are coming out around the time of this video, but I highly recommend you check out my other videos coming up soon on which are the best characters in the game and which are the best weapons to pick. They'll be super helpful for new players, and if you're trying to clear all of the content, having some meta characters might help. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope you guys are having a great time, because I've spent the entire week just writing scripts and recording videos, so if you guys are having fun at least, then my day is made. I'm good to go. Subscribe for more Endfield